Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, and this is my dog Coda, who will not leave me alone. So she's going to be in my video today. This is the first lab video on chapter 3. And I know everyone, I mean, I don't know everyone. I'm guessing everyone else was a little bit confused about the directions. From what I understand, we're supposed to make the video and have that by Thursday, which is today, and then we will do like our lab reviews and everything, or lab reviews, our peer reviews by Sunday. So it's weird to make a video, but you guys can all watch it on like 2.5 speed. And also, I have a cute dog here to help make it less weird, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, so this video was kind of hard to watch for me. It was just really sad, very somber. The music did not help at all. And I understand that it's a very somber topic, honestly. Um, so the first question is, 1 second. Hold on. Okay, I pulled up the questions, and also I realized I actually made a video and I realized it was 10 minutes long. So honestly, it's really easy to ramble, and I'm a yapper. So the first question is, what are the unforeseen problems with growing old in the US? And I think that the cost of growing old is what they talk about a lot in the movie. And people save their whole lives for their retirement, and then when they go into a nursing home, they're paying like 3 times what a normal mortgage is just to live every month. That's really disheartening for a lot of people. Yeah, just the overall care is very expensive. And then if you are getting in-home care, also very, very expensive. So I think that's something that people don't expect. We should think about it, but we don't. And it just goes back to like, we don't want to think about death. We don't want to think about the end. The next question is, how do we treat the elderly, and what do we think of being old or the elderly in general? And this is not like I'm not trying to make a political statement or anything, but like during COVID, I think a lot of us, myself included, in the beginning didn't really take the elderly population into account when we were thinking about how we were going to go about our lives during that. We didn't think about the fact that there would be so many older people dying of that in pretty gruesome ways. It was not a good quality of life for a lot of people, and that's really unfortunate. And I guess that's kind of over encompassing all of just our normal day-to-day lives, but like hospice was affected and things like that. And I think that hopefully opened our eyes to how elder care is, and just the pressure it put on our healthcare system. But I think that also just in general in our day-to-day lives, we don't see a lot of older people because we are able to make our social circles smaller, and we're able to kind of like live in a bubble where we don't have to see everybody if we don't want to. And it's easier to call or like send a text to elderly parents or grandparents than it is to just go to a nursing home and visit them, because going to a nursing home and visiting is kind of hard. And then just in our day-to-day lives, our lives are different now, and we aren't necessarily in situations where we're going to see a lot of elder people. From a sociological perspective, what does our treatment of the elderly say about our views of life and death? We don't think about them too much. And again, we don't want to think about the end of our lives. We don't want to think about how hard it could be potentially. We don't want to think about, I don't know, just all the sadness that can come with it. Personally, because I had those experiences with going with my dad to take care of people, I feel like there are a lot of people who can find a lot of joy, even if they're really low income, even if they're really don't have a lot of happiness and things to look forward to. I feel like my experiences with those people were, I mean, honestly, like there were a couple people that he visited once a week, and I know they spent the whole week looking forward to us coming. So maybe that's just a positive experience that I had, but I still think about that even now. So some of the medical interventions talked about in the film. I think they talked about like intubation. Um, that's a very sad situation to be in. I know that like the quality of life is not great for people when they're intubated. Um, like having to tube feed people, things like that. Things like that are just very difficult. They talked about cancers, certain cancers, and how a lot of people still want to get chemotherapy even though there's no chance of recovery. And then they just kind of have to deal with like all the sickness that comes with chemotherapy, and that's also very sad. Um, why is there a deficit of people going into the care industry or geriatrics? I think it's just it's very physically demanding. It's very emotionally and mentally demanding. You have to be a very patient person, and not everybody can do that. It's just not a necessarily an industry that people are like, oh, I want to go do that. I want to go take care of older people. I think you said there were 50 people in their second year in 2016, so that's not very many. My own experience with the very older death and dying. I kind of shared about knowing a lot of older people, but kind of a cool experience is that my grandmother, it's not a cool experience, but my grandmother passed away the day before I turned 30. And she actually had moved in with my parents out of the nursing home during COVID and moved in with my parents. And during that time, she lived in the room where I was born, because my parents still live in the same house that I was born in. And she ended up passing away in the room that I was born in, which just seems like a crazy thing. We never imagined in our whole lives that she would ever move in with my parents. And she did. So I don't know. I guess for me personally, that feels very full circle and kind of a little special. I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of like literally the best way you can imagine. Life comes in, life goes out. We're all very connected. And how did I relate to the film? I thought it was so sad. The whole thing was painful to watch. The music was difficult to get through. Yeah, I don't love, it was hard to watch, but important to remember that like that's a reality, and like we need to think about our futures. We need to think about how we're going to affect our kids and things like that. I did really like the very end when that lady, I forgot her name already, but she was speaking about how she had really liked her life. She wasn't really afraid of death. She just kind of figured she wanted her heart to just take her out when it was her time to go. And then the very, very end was her talking about, or they were talking about how she had a heart attack and died. So she went out the way she wanted to. And that seems like the only silver lining we were going to get from that. So anyway, sorry, this was a long video. I tried to make it short, but I ramble. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys later.